Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us today on the 8th day of June 2022. It's a Wednesday. The week is just flying by because of all the developments that's happening. And today we are going to be talking about some of that, particularly regarding bread. We have a saying in the Philippines, pag binato ka ng bato, batuhin mo ng tinapay, don't do that. Bread has become so expensive that the bakers in the Philippines want to raise their prices because they will lose money. It is no longer about break even. They will break their backs if they continue selling bread at the current prices because the international market has such a serious shortage that people are talking about how the lack of bread in some countries, particularly the Muslim countries, if there is no bread, there is going to be a serious civil disturbance. So yung pong tinapay na minamaliit natin na pandesal sa ibang bansa, magkakagulo sila pag hindi lumabas ang tinapay. So we will be speaking to our guests today. First off is a friend of mine. We've known each other for quite some time, and he is perhaps one of the most well-known individuals as far as bread matters are concerned, the president of Phil Baking Industry Group, President Johnlu. We will speak to him later in the program, and he will be joined by Undersecretary Ruth Castelo, who probably who probably don't know what to do anymore from all of the challenges regarding consumer needs. Okay, but before all of that, let's go to our daily starter. And I hope I am not confused here, but it is from Pastor T.D. Jakes. And our daily starter is, you cannot rebuke a devil that you continuously grant access to your life. Okay? Hindi nyo pwedeng sitahin, kontrahin, or awayin yung demonyo na palagi mo naman pinapapasok sa buhay mo o sa bahay mo. Okay? Whether it is a, whether it is a product, like let's say cigarette or alcohol, you keep saying that's bad, but you let it come into the house, or it's a person of bad influence or a bad relationship. You cannot rebuke a devil. Yung devil po dito, figure of speech. No? Wag naman yung tatawaging devil, yung hindi nyo kasundo. That's not good. But you cannot rebuke a devil that you continuously grant access to your life. Okay? So, okay, now let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star. Today, June 8, 2022, and the front page headline goes, IATF allows 100 capacity in Alert 1. Okay, so for the businesses, establishments, etc., you are now allowed to have 100% capacity for customers, etc. under Alert Level 1. Now, iba po yung sinasabing 100% capacity as per rules of the Business License Bureau, Bureau of Fire Prevention, etc. Kesa sa sinasabi yung punuan, okay? Kasi meron like in the Sabungan, pag sinabing 100% capacity, parang divisoria, hindi dapat po ganon. Okay, so that's the good news. Now, at the top of the front page, we have 10 peso minimum fare, fuel tax suspension pressed. Various groups, particularly those involved in the transport sector, are pushing for a minimum 10 peso fare increase sa kanilang pasahe because they no longer can afford fuel, which shockingly is now at 80 to almost 100 pesos per liter. Mas mahal na ngayon kesa sa mineral water. Okay. And then you have inflation soars to 5.4% in May. Okay? Now, many people, let's say, si Cito, puro na lang inflation, inflation. The idea of reminding you of inflation is for you to be aware so you can take a defensive position, you can take a position where you can manage everything. So, ayan po, no, tumaas ang presyo ng mga bilihin and lalo pang tataas. Okay, let's not fool ourselves. It's going to go even higher because of the global situation. It has nothing to do with local politics or our economy. It is all about the global situation. Okay, that photo that you see there, okay, that is also related to, okay, people waiting. Naku po, pila-pila talaga. The lines of people hoping to take the bus carousel along EDSA, etc. And then lumayo na nga sa EDSA yung pila because people can no longer afford to drive their cars. So, sabi nga ni Ariel Oreta, upang makabiyahe, bisikleta ang kailangan. Okay, now, rice prices may go up by year end. Ayan na po, ito na po yung problema. Instead of 20 pesos per kilo for rice, baka raw may nagsabi, baka tumaas pa by as much as 6 pesos by the year end. Okay, that was a statement given by Agriculture Undersecretary for Policy and Planning, Fermin Adriano. Okay, now the question is this being presented by the DA as a fact, a certainty, or is it to substantiate more importation dahil Department of Importation na ang DA? Okay, SWS, Social Weather Station, more families experienced hunger in the first quarter of 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, I appeal to all of you, all of us, if there is someone or anyone you can find to determine who are going hungry, let's help them. Okay, tulungan po ninyo kahit nasustentohan nyo ng ilang kilong sako, ilang kilong bigas, buwan-buwan, makakatulong po yun, or weekly better, because apparently as many as 3.1 families experienced hunger in the first quarter of 2022. And that is a judgment on all of us. When our fellow Filipinos suffer hunger, tapos marami tayong kaibigang naka-Ferrari, naka-Porsche, at mga naka-Rolex, medyo we need to ask ourselves, are we really being fair and caring for fellow Filipinos? Wag po, yung naghihirap, poverty will always be there. But when hunger haunts 3.1 million Filipinos, it is something to be ashamed of. Okay, now that picture in the middle, the members of the Manila Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office hosing down the parade grounds of the Quirino Grandstand. Okay, sorry po, maling ano po yan, mali pong headline yan, pero puntahan ko na rin yan. Sige, okay. Next, yung Manila Archdiocese Building Center for Exorcism. Medyo ibang usapan na yan, ibang level na to. Tatayo na ng building for exorcism. Makes you kind of wonder, are there that many Filipinos possessed by evil spirits that they have to put up a building for the purpose. Baga parang sine, di ba? What's going on? We have a broken arrow. What's a broken arrow? Oh, it's a missing jet fighter. Oh, I don't know which should disturb me more, that we have a missing jet fighter or that it is happening so often that we have a term for it. In this case, Manila Archdiocese Building Center for Exorcism, patay tayo dyan. Okay, statement of contributions of shows Marcos spent 623 million for presidential campaign. Okay, kind of makes you wonder how elections and campaigns in the Philippines and many parts of the world has become so big and so expensive that the money used in those campaigns could actually capitalize a serious business. Tanungin natin mamaya si Johnlu, pwede ba ako makapagtayo ng malaking panaderya with 623 million? Okay, and last but not the least, graft wraps filed versus 37 Bureau of Immigration execs in the Pastilla scam. Ayan po, no? The Office of the Ombudsman, clap your hands, has filed graft charges against several immigration officials led by former Immigration Deputy Commissioner Mark Red Marinas in connection with the so-called Pastilla scam. If you don't know what that was the system at the airport where foreign nationals were being escorted by personnel of the Bureau of Immigration and money was being passed around, rolled up, parang pastillas, like pastillas. So, there you go. Those are the news items on the front page of the Philippine Star. Now let's go to our guests. First up is the gentleman who is the founder and CEO of the French Baker Incorporated and L'Artisan. He also brought Chat Time from Taiwan in 2010 as a Philippine franchisee. He's also responsible for Van Lac. Sa kanya pala itong mga single brand European chain of men's and ladies clothing. Mahal. Okay? Pang mga pogi yan. Pang mga pogi. Okay. And he completed BSBA and MBA degrees with honors from UP Diliman. Hindi ko alam na nag-ano pala ito. Nag-honorable mention pala ito. Ako, hanggang honorable discharge lang ako. Okay, let's bring in our friend Johnlu of President Philippine Baking Industry. John, good morning.
Good morning, Cito. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, medyo nasusurprise ako kanya. Gusto kong binabasa yung mga biodata ng mga kaibigan ko. Tingnan mo nga naman yan. Nakala ko puro happening lang tayo. Yung pala, you had honors in UP when you were in college.
Yeah, I was also teaching for 15 years.
Okay.
So that completes my bio.
Okay, that's your bio. Now, serious stuff. I'm just trying to, put the energy and a little positivity in things today. But we've got a serious situation, my friend. There's the supply of wheat globally is so bad that the allied nations under NATO are already talking about a humanitarian transfer of wheat out of Ukraine. Kumbaga, pag nagkapuwersahan na, imi-military escort na nila out of Ukraine yung wheat because the world is suffering. And as a result, there are also other nations who are holding back on wheat, plus exacerbated by this fuel problem. The supply chain is so disrupted. Now, what are we doing in the Philippines? Because, John, I remember when you were in college, when I was in college, we were always talking about alternative products for bread or for baking.
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, in the Philippines, the wheat situation is still stable.
Mhm.
There is a lot of supply because thanks to the flour millers, they were able to stock up on purchases in the past several months. Ang problema lang, bakers should be willing to pay for the new price. Bakers who are not willing to pay for the new price will not be given stocks. That's supply and demand.
Mhm.
So the problem here really is that as prices go up and as bakers are not are unable to adjust their prices, not because of DTI, not because of government, but because of the demand supply situation, then bread may become scarce.
Okay, now apparently the flour already went up by 65%. Is that accurate?
Oh, yes. Um, in August 2021, it was hovering at about 690 pesos. Today, it's over 1,000 pesos, depending on how large you are as a user and depending on who you bought from in the value chain.
Mhm. Eh, harina pa lang yan. That's only flour. Because I have been watching my wife bake our own bread. We've reached that point. We said we might as well start baking our own bread. But there's flour, there's yeast, there's I think some people use egg, etc. I mean, at the end of the day, for your operations, how does this affect your operations, your cost, and the ultimate sales?
Yes, well, I straddle both retail, boutique retail bakery, and also the interests of my members at Phil Baking.
Mm.
For the manufacturers like Gardenia, Marby, Uncle George, Walter, Tiffany Bread, MLM Fortune, um, their cost structure is very different from the cost structure of the small bakers in the neighborhood. The big bakers are able to buy big volumes and enjoy better prices. Kawawa talaga yung mga community bakers.
Mhm.
Now, why are we petitioning for an adjustment in the SRP for Pandesal? It is simply because the small bakers should also be allowed to raise their community prices, not by fiat, not by force, not by legislation, but simply by the expectation of the consumers. Ang problema sito, they go to the supermarket. One bag is only so much. Today, the price is 23.50.
Okay.
And then the community bakers, because they're so small, they only make so little, they couldn't make money out of 23.50 per bag. They need to sell it at 27.50. But the consumers will say they're overpricing because in the supermarket it's only so little.
Mhm.
That's that's what's happening now. And then for the big bakers naman, right now the challenge really is to continue to expand the supply of Pinoy Tasty and Pinoy Pandesal. 12 years ago, we created a program called Pinoy Tasty as a way of providing affordable, nutritious bread at the subsidized price of close to 25% based on the average prices of our private brands. And so it's been going on for 12 years now. And the demand has been consistently going up. But this time, the subsidy could no longer be 25 because the cost of flour has become so expensive. Excuse me. So right now, what we're doing is on our own, we're trying to mitigate increases in our own brands and at the same time trying to put out as much as we can the Pinoy Pandesal and the Pinoy Tasty in the supermarkets.
Mhm.
However, somewhere along the way, something will have to give. And as prices of flour, prices of sugar, prices of oil, flour, water, salt, sugar, prices of yeast go up. There's no other way but
Packaging material,
yeah,
delivery.
yeah. And of course, operations expense include wages, include gasoline, diesel, electricity, etc. So everything is going to go up. And naman in business, to stay afloat, you really have to have like value adding. So if the value added to the product has become so little, then the ability to stay in business will be diminished.
Okay, let's go for just a quick break, John. And when we come back, where do we go? Because in this kind of a situation, we have damned if you do and damned if you don't. Meaning you can raise prices, it results in lower sales, or you can reduce the quality or size or volume, but then your customers complain. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, kindly address that issue. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking all of you watching the program, especially for being subscribers of Cignal TV, viewers of One News PH on channels 8 and 250. And for those of you who want to watch us while you are traveling, etc., you can catch us on Facebook.com, One News PH, and on YouTube. Okay, now if you had listened or you were listening in the earlier part of the program, we've been talking about the fact that the supply of flour has gone up by as much as 65%, and then the small retailers are bearing the brunt because their costs are much higher or are higher than the big buyers. And so they are being compared by their consumers. Now, Johnlu is with us. He's president of Philippine Baking Industry Group. John, how many members do you have under your group?
We have about 10 members, Cito.
And they're all big time, right? I mean, you are the large volume producers.
Almost all of the big brands in the supermarket.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we were discussing the fact that in a situation like this where costs keep going up, not just for the production of bread, but also for the operations, fuel for deliveries, etc. The producers like you have a choice. You either raise your prices or you reduce or cut costs, as they say. What's going on? How will one affect you, or how will the other affect you?
Yes, first of all, Cito, you must remember that for the big bakers, we always take a very long-term view. Many of our brands are over 2 decades, in my case, 3 decades already. And long-term view means sacrificing short-term goals for long-term goals. So brand building is very important. Consumers will remember what you did today and will reward you in the future, maybe here. So all of us are taking.
Okay, I think we're having a problem there with the signal of John. We'll get back to John if we once we restore that. In the meantime, let's bring in our other guest. She's probably one of the busiest and hardworking officials of the the Department of Trade and Industry. We have none other than Undersecretary Ruth Castelo. Usec Ruth, good morning.
Good morning, Cito. It's very nice to be back. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, I'm glad that you remain to be fresh and happy looking, because I wouldn't want your job for all the money in the world. And the DTI is in the middle of all of this global problem regarding supply and supply chain. What is our situation? Because we're talking to Johnlu of Phil Baking Group, and it's now a situation where the big bakers will survive, will make the sacrifice for long-term sustainability. But according to John, kawawa yung mga community, yung mga barangay bakeries.
Because prices of Pandesal has really gone up.
Mm.
Yeah, that's right.
No, yeah.
Yeah, at least for the DTI, kasi yung Cito, the prices of bread in community bakeries are no longer covered by our mandate. So we do not regulate them anymore. But at least in the suggested retail price bulletin that we have the Pinoy Tasty and Pinoy Pandesal. We have one brand. This is with, of course, the efforts of Phil Baking, headed by Johnlu, and our big bakers who continue to provide this product in the market. I always say that Pinoy Tasty and Pinoy Pandesal are comparable to the other branded breads that you can find on retail at a lower price, a much lower price. And of course, thanks to Phil Baking that we have this available in most retail stores.
Yeah, okay. Now, let's be clear about that so that consumers understand. Hindi po trabaho naman talaga ng DTI yung bantayan ng mga panaderyan. Kumbaga, hindi nyo na mandate yun. But what about the supply? The supply of wheat? Because at the end of the day, if it's not wheat, kahapon nga, I was telling Johnlu, I was telling him, I was wondering whether we could use kamote for baking pandesal. Can we use rice for baking pandesal? Because the wheat is a global challenge right now because of the Ukraine-Russia war. Now, in terms of getting the materials, what can DTI do?
There are other alternatives. We work with the Department of Science and Technology on this. There are other alternative products that we can use also. I think it's going to be blended in with wheat flour. I'm not sure if it can be used alone without wheat. So it will be blended with wheat, and then we will have less need for wheat. Like if we use 10% of coconut flour or malunggay flour or cassava flour, then we will use only 90% of wheat. But we can probably also use the bakers, and the DOST can also look into using a higher percentage of other products so that we can use less wheat in the process.
Let's call in John. John, I hope you can join us now. And I need to find out about that, John, because I've been experimenting with my wife. We've made bread with mushroom, bread with banana, loaf bread with peanut. Sabi ko, bakit tayo puro straight white bread, di ba? Baka naman pwedeng mag-combination. But John, you promised me a scoop on agenda. You said you were... Okay, John, go.
First of all, Cito, remember, home baking is very exciting because it is actually a breeding ground for breakthroughs. I'm so glad you talked about banana and alternative sources of flours. Indeed, you can make a piece of bread with anything that can bind the starches together. You can make something out of it. You can even make a pumpkin bread if you want to. But in this situation, you're looking at the mass market where the customers expect a piece of pandesal that has to be like this. It can't be any other way. So kami ni Usec Ruth and Usec Guevara ng DOST, we actually, Usec Ruth, baka pwede na nating i-describe yung project natin, di ba?
Yes,
What we're
Yusek.
working on.
Sabihin mo na, Yusek.
Yeah. Pwede na kaya?
We're waiting to launch it kasi, Cito, but we're working on a project that will that is much healthier for the Filipino consumer, di ba, Johnlu? 4 times higher on fiber that we're going to have soon. We're just finalizing the schedule for the launch, and the bakers are also finalizing preparations so that we can make sure. Because Cito, once we launch this, I think Usec Gav has already spoken about this also in the media. Once we launch this, it will have to be completely available na in the market. That's why hinihintay din natin maging fully prepared ang Phil baking to supply, so that they will have continuous supply. Na, hindi ba, John?
Yes, Cito, Usec Ruth was able to initiate discussions with, for example, RFM. To already, they're blending a 90-10 wheat cocoa flour, bread flour for mass consumption by big and small bakeries. So why cocoa flour important? You know, I just realized this in the last 60 days. I was told by Sheena of Century Pacific, yung mga owners sila friends natin, Chris and Ted po. Yung pala, cocoa flour is a byproduct of VCO production, virgin coconut oil. After they will have pressed out all oils, the remaining, the residue is dried and then is pulverized. And that one either fed to the cattle or to the hog industry, or it could be processed for human consumption. So we thought that maybe if we can put 10% of that in a 90% blend with wheat flour, now we can make it for buko pie, pastillas. We can even
Aba, Usec Ruth. Hindi ako papayag niyan. May secret ka pala dyan. May secret project ka pala, Usec Ruth Castelo. No, because guys, you know, Usec Ruth, I was telling John, I've become vegan. Now, you know, if a carnivore like me can actually switch to vegan, it doesn't take a global shift for Filipinos to go to banana bread, to pandikoko, or cocoa flour baked pandesal, because very highly adaptive naman tayo. Pag pumunta ka nga dito sa barangay, may mga tinapay na hindi ko maintindihan kung bakit gano'n ang pangalan. Iniintay ko nga lumabas yung Marites na tinapay. No? But anyway, Usec, could you please tell us, so this is a good story, cocoa flour.
Nako, Johnlu, we haven't launched yet. But this is a collaboration project between DTI and DOST and VCO, Philippine Coconut Authority, and Phil Baking as well. So, kasi sila yung bakers. DTI is the initiator. DTI and DOST is the initiator. DOST does the research, did the research on the nutrition value and all that. DTI connected them with retail kasi kailangan ma-saturate natin yung market sa retail, di ba? And then the other, anong tawag sa kanila? Blenders ba yun, Johnlu? The businesses that will mix cocoa flour and wheat flour. Kasi not all flour millers are able to do this because of the equipment that is needed to separate the oil, mga ganyan. And then there's the Phil Baking. Phil Baking naman has been collaborating with the DTI for the past many years. I will mention Pinoy Tasty and Pinoy Pandesal because this is the only brand of bread that has remained in the suggested retail price or bulletin of the DTI. Kasi nga, the prices are kept low. Phil Baking, the manufacturers or the members of Phil Baking have fully supported the efforts of DTI na hindi sila magtataas ng presyo basta-basta despite the increasing prices of wheat. Except that recently, meron silang request that we're really looking into para hindi naman rin sila malugi o hindi mag-stop mag-produce nitong produkto na to.
Okay, now that's good news kasi I realized that like when I was talking about bananas, for instance, 5-5 magpalaki ng saging. We have hundreds of bananas here in our area, and Filipinos love sweet bread. So it is an option. So ladies and gentlemen, let's congratulate the DTI, DOST, the Phil Baking Group for this initiative. Kasi yun po, Usec, Ruth, is what we're driving at. Hindi naman ako scoop hungry. Kilala mo naman ako. Marami akong tinatanggihan na I think should not be out there. But here, because people are really wondering what is government doing to at least alleviate the situation. Now, my other question for the benefit of the flour importers or wheat importers, ewan ko kung yun yung tamang term, ano? But there are countries that have stuck it out, meaning they are subsidizing bread production in their areas because they said if bread does not come out, we will have a revolution. Ito sa mga Islamic countries na medyo mahirap. In the Philippines, given that we have a somewhat of a serious supply problem, is the DTI inclined to push for a waiver on duties and taxes for the period of that there is a shortage on wheat?
That was discussed already. That was put on the table with Secretary Lopez, Cito. But before I answer that question, I'd just like to say that Undersecretary Guevara, Rowena Guevara of DOST, has been talking about the nutritional value of using coconut flour, malunggay, di ba, Johnlu, cassava, for bread. And now this is going to come into fruition. Malapit na Cito, malapit na Johnlu. We're really hoping, we have regular checkpoint meetings every week to make sure that we are on the right track and that we are able to complete the project at this during this administration, because it's the legacy of President Duterte, Secretary Lopez, and Secretary Boy de la Peña of DOST.
Alam mo,
Okay.
Cito.
Go ahead,
Alam mo,
John.
Cito. Nung ginawa ko yung Pinoy Coco Pandesal, pati yung coco flour manufacturer nagulat. Sabi sa akin, is this really made with our coco flour? Sabi ko, yeah. How could you have done it? Sabi ko, jokingly secret. But I'm teaching everybody naman.
You have to send some to Cito because, surprisingly, Cito, it tastes much better than the regular pandesal. The one
yung
with
fiber 5 times di ba?
5 times
5 times fiber. And
Okay,
source of vitamin
mga
A.
kaibigan, doon po sa inyo hindi nakaka-gets ng importance ng fiber para pag pumunta ka pag umaga, hindi kayo nahihirapan pumunta sa banyo.
Fiber. Pang-ayos ng digestion natin. Yes, that's right.
So, okay, but how much of an effect does it have on cost, Johnlu? Because, it's great. We now have this cocoa flour. But how much savings or price reduction does it create?
Okay, Cito. I have been using actually cocoa flour for many, many years. It was a suggestion made by Cory Quirino. Sabi niya, Johnlu, tulungan natin yung coconut farmers. Gamitin mo naman yung cocoa flour. So I said, cocoa flour? Cocoa flour? O sige, lagay na lang natin, Cory, sa cookies. So nilagay ko sa cookies. Sumarap ang cookies ko. I have cookies as huge as this, like a plate. So it worked. And then I tried it already on bread. Actually, it already worked, Usec, Ruth. Kaya lang, at that time, pero mo magkano lang yung flour? Cocoa flour was almost double the price of flour. And I said, there doesn't seem to be any logic if I were to switch to cocoa flour, 2 times the cost of bread flour, parang hindi tama. Until this time, until this happened, I said, oh, I'm gonna get out my notes from my books and then say, do a cocoa pandesal project. Tamang-tama, Cito, the cocoa flour manufacturers decided to support the program. They dropped the price.
Okay. Well,
They dropped the price to a little bit more than half.
okay, Usec Ruth, what has the DTI done to align everybody? Kumbaga, kasi parang food chain yan eh. Merong pumipitas ng niyog, merong nagkukudkud ng niyog, ginagawang VCO, tapos yung sapal ng niyog na sinasabi ni Johnlu, the remains, the fibrous remains, that's the one being dried and pressed for or broken down for the flour. Is there now an alignment? Kasi ang challenge in many occasions, hahanapin mo pa yung source.
Now that the DOST kasi is also on board. So and the Department of Agriculture, we have the Philippine Coconut Authority for the supply. Yung supply chain yan, kaya nga nandyan na yung mga millers din because they also get some anong tawag doon, derivative products also from the whole coconut product. Kaya hindi siya nasasayang because we get the VCO, we get the coprao, and then we get the coconut. We convert some parts also into coconut flour. I do not know exactly what, but in other words, the coconut. Sabi nga nung kanta mo, Cito, the coconut nut is a giant nut, diba? I mean, kanta ng kamukha mo.
Walang ganyanan, ha? The coconut nut is not a nut.
Diba? So yung coconut really has all the values that it has, especially nutritional values, yung health values, yung effects atin. That's why in our promotion of the Coco Pandesal, kasi we appreciate field baking, we appreciate the Philippine Coconut Authority and VCO, we appreciate the flour millers, but without the support of government, hindi din naman nila mapupush masyado.
Correct.
That's why it's a collaborative project of all stakeholders involved. In our promotion of the Coco Pandesal, di ba kagabi when Johnlu, when we finalized the label, yung marking doon sa kanyang bag, nakalagay doon yung 5 times higher in fiber and then all the other nutritional benefits. It will also include the logos of the stakeholders that are involved in pushing for this product. And kaya hindi kami maka-launch agad, right, Johnlu? I'm sure you will agree with me. Because initially, we've been doing this kasi for the last couple of months already, Cito. Kaya lang hindi pa agad ma-launch because we're considering sustainability as well. Hindi pwedeng now you see, now you don't siya in the market. We want it, once we launch it, we want it to be there on the shelves na makikita ng mga consumers natin.
Consider yourselves launched. They launched na namin sa agenda. Okay.
Thank you, Cito. We look forward to that, please.
Yeah. Okay. I know that Usec Ruth, you have to go. Alam ko may important meeting ka. I'm sorry to have detained you, but may special request lang dito because you are well known as far as consumer concerns go. There is an appeal here. Please ask Usec Ruth ng tips para sa mga consumers kung paano makakatipid sa pamimili ng item sa grocery. Ewan ko kung sumusakop mo ba ito, Usec Ruth, no? Pero ikaw kasi yung ikaw yung muse, ikaw yung model na consumer.
But you know why, Cito and John? Because I'm also a consumer. Na-experience ko din lahat yan, hindi ba? Nakikita ko rin lahat. But the most important thing that I'm going to say is we have the suggested retail price bulletin that is published by DTI. All these products are carefully studied, carefully reviewed, carefully validated, and negotiated pa with the manufacturers. Kumbaga, di ba, Johnlu, kami yung DTI ang tumatawad sa manufacturer in behalf of the consumer. So pagka halimbawa si Johnlu would request 4 pesos, 3 pesos na lang or 2 pesos na lang kasi hindi kaya ng consumer, ganyan. So they can check on the DTI e-pressure application. We launched it around a couple of weeks ago. We have upgraded it. They can download it in their cell phones. Dalhin nila sa supermarket when they go grocery shopping, Sito. Kasi ito yung mga choices mo na kumbaga intelligent, the wisest choices that you can make. Kasi ito yung products that have been carefully studied by government. So kung makikita nila, yun ang bilhin nila. And please always look for the price tag. Kung wala pong price tag yung produkto na binibili nyo, call the attention of the supermarket or let us know. And pwedeng end or yan, or let us know. Pag dalawa po ang presyo, that's a violation of the Price Act as well, at saka ng Consumer Act, yung price tag law natin. Pag dalawa po ang presyo, please remember to pay always the lower price. Hindi po pwedeng ipilit ng store na yung mas mataas ang babayaran mo kung nagkamali sila. Any product, Sito, not only food, not only apparel, not only clothes, even the ones you find online, applicable po yung ganyang batas natin.
Ayan, mabuti na banggit mo yan. May susumbong ako sa iyo, Usec Ruth, mamaya na pagkatapos na ng event mo. But thank you very much for your time. And congratulations. And I mean that, and I believe Filipinos appreciate that the DTI is spearheading this cocoa flour program with the DOST, with Phil Baking, because at the end of the day, we need all the help we can get, and we all need to help each other. Thank you very much, Usec Ruth Castelo.
Thank you very much, Cito. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you, Johnlu.
Okay, Johnlu, it's back to you now. Let's carry on talking about this bread situation. May I ask, how popular is bread and bakery products with Filipinos? Kasi parang I had the impression that that market should be getting smaller and smaller because it's not every Filipino can afford it. But pag nadadaan naman ako sa barangay, walang katapusan ng mga bakery, panaderya sa mga barangay. How popular are bread and baked products in the Philippines?
Cito, before the pandemic, there was a very a gradual increase in the consumption of wheat flour in the Philippines. Now, that is already enough proof to tell you that bread is made out of flour. And if flour consumption goes up, then bread consumption must also go up. So it's a one-to-one relationship, direct relationship. But the problem is after the lockdown, there was a dip of about 20+% in sales. For obvious reasons. People didn't go out. Call center agents didn't have to eat snacks. Face-to-face classes were suspended. In general, the office market suffered a decline. So this is a lifestyle constraint rather than a personal constraint. People did not choose not to eat, but people were prevented from doing so because they did not find a reason to be mobile. Now that the market is back and people are able to go around, we have already seen sales going back to pre-pandemic days on many days of the week, but not every day of the week.
Okay.
So this is good news for us.
Okay, let's go for another break, Johnlu, and when we come back, let's continue talking about this because I'm really curious what new product lines you guys are going to come up, not just on the bread part, but your industry is one of the most creative industries, so let's talk about that as well. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran. With us is Mr. Johnlu of Phil Baking, the country's Philippine Baking Industry Group. Okay, they're a aggregation of 10 top baking or whatever baking group in the Philippines. Hindi ko na alam paano kayo i-describe kasi iba-iba kayo. Association. Okay, iba-iba kayo. Now, before the break, I mentioned I'm curious as to what solutions the Philippine Baking Group have come up with. So we just launched. Akala mo kasali. No? We just launched.
You're the one.
The cocoa flour. Okay, it's my fault. I take responsibility for the illegal launch of the coconut flour in the Philippines. Okay, but what other solutions? I already asked Usec Ruth about waiver of duties and taxes for flour during this period of shortage or crisis. But other than cocoa flour, what other solutions do you guys have?
Well, first of all, the solutions should come also from the bakeries themselves. One of the biggest costs that we incur is wastage. Wastage, for example, yung dinideliver namin sa supermarket, may tinatawag na BO, Cito. Yung BO, yung bad order. What were not sold after 2 days are returned back to the bakery suppliers. That eats up close to 10% of the cost of distribution. So that area, we're also concentrating. So instead of tatambakan mo ng sobrang daming tinapay, so the bakeries are trying to kind of like do their scheduling properly, talk to each other, so that cutthroat competition will not become ruinous. Mm-hmm. So that's one area. Another area is basic savings lang. For example lang, in the bakery, proper storage, proper handling of flour and other ingredients. Don't waste it. Before at 690, sige, 1 kilo magkano lang. Ngayon at more than 1,000, it's just too expensive. So cost control as regards storage, distribution, handling, etc. One other thing is, of course, operationally, we should study our logistics. Are we paying too much to bring it in? How about people who are in the supermarkets, the merchandisers? Maybe merchandisers can talk to each other to be able to bring down costs. Maybe 2 bakeries can share one merchandiser, which was the topic of our discussion. Total, we're all friendly members. Mm-hmm. Yung merchandiser, yung lalapit ka Cito, di ba? Mm-hmm. Isang ID, pero at the back of the ID is hired by so-and-so, this and that. But you probably thought they're employees of the supermarket, but they're not. So if we could share 1 for 2, instead of hiring 3 for 3 brands, maybe 1 for 3 brands, that could also bring down the price of distribution. And finally, yung sa consumer naman, I think everybody should now have a certain mindset to conserve, not because you cannot afford, but because it's the proper thing to do in the world today. Natural food production is right now challenged. What do we do? This is my baguette, Cito. I get every morning. Beautiful, l'artisan baguette.
Okay.
What do? I make it into slices of bread. Under the sun, 3 hours, you can dry them. It becomes a beautiful toast. Sarap. Sun-dried or oven-dried. So everybody should do that. The ends of the loaf, dry it up, make it into crumbs, make it into pudding, make it into crouton, or make it into a snack. This one, for example, you can put pate or whatnot. It can become a beautiful toast. It tastes better than the average cracker in the market because most bakeries ferment the dough very well. The aroma is excellent. It's so crunchy. You see?
Okay, we
Don't
can
waste
hear the
it.
crunch.
So everybody should conserve.
But, it's interesting, Johnlu, because time and again, I have encountered bags of flour, pag binuksan mo, meron tawag ba doon, yung weevil, yung ano ba yun, bukbuk ba yun? Oh, bukbuk. And that's another thing. When people do not store those flour properly in a situation where we have shortages, how do you prevent that in your supply? Kasi I think, aside from waste, yung bang pests.
Well, SOP naman yung pest control. Hindi naman issues sa big bakers. Ang problema talaga is that small bakeries that do not understand management of stocks may still learn. It's not too late. Flour. Ang pinakakaaway ng flour is heat and humidity. So don't put it next to the oven. Don't put it under the sun. It's more than $1,000 a bag. So keep it like you're keeping your cell phone, away from heat, away from humidity, away from pests.
Okay.
Pests like to congregate when there's nobody in that area. So don't put it in an isolated place. You're just tempting them to chew on them.
Okay. Well, Johnlu, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but thank you very much for accommodating us this morning, helping us through, and thank you. Thanks but no thanks na nang iinggit ka dyan sa bagets mo. Call me when you already have the traditional pandikoko. Then I will pay you a visit, okay?
I will send it to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Johnlu
You're
of
welcome.
the Philippine Baking Group. That's our guest for today. Thanks, John. Now, let's go to our weekly blessing for this week. May the blessings of this day radiate through your smile, be helpful through your hands, and shine through your heart. Yan po ang ating prayer, that each and every one of you will be blessed, but that each and every one of you will also be a blessing. And for those of you who are going around Metro Manila, nakakita kayo ng medyo kapos, nahihirapan, please share what you have with others. God bless all of you. Please keep it here on One News PH.